Welcome. Thank you for joining. My name is Tony Robinson, known online as Tony Robinson Consulting. I'm an author, an entrepreneur, and investor from Cleveland, Ohio. My company works with everyday people to help them put money back into their monthly budget, creating wealth for themselves and ultimately for their future generations. Over the past 20 years, my company has helped hundreds of people be able to qualify and obtain their first property, and also their first investment property as well. So I'm here today to talk about the title for my new book and also for my talk, which is The Power of Generational Wealth. I appreciate the opportunity working with Black CEO, and I thank Black CEO for putting this event together. It's been a blessing working with them, them showing me how to level up my business and put my business in the next trajectory, and they can do the same for you as well. Like I said, the title of my platform today is The Power of Generational Wealth. One must really make a conscious decision to both affect and be responsible for their own future. This conscious decision is best if it's based on probable and what's likely. There's a quote from a famous author, Deepak Chopra. In one of his best-selling books, Meta-Human, he talks about this unleashing this infinite power. According to what he says, one's consciousness interprets a situation in a specific way. The reality of that situation fits whatever consciousness has decided. Say that again. Once consciousness interprets a situation in a specific way, the reality of that situation fits whatever consciousness has decided. So in layman's terms, whatever the mind believes, the mind can achieve. Deepak Chopra said that. Why is that important today? Why am I here wearing these chains? So, in talking about the power of generational wealth, as it relates to our culture, we're last. We're very last when it comes to wealth accumulation. And I believe that has a lot to do with the chains that we've had on ourselves for some time. At this point, it's really a mental chain that we have, according to our spending habits and the way we do business. There are 5 pillars of wealth. Savings and credit is one. Real property assets, investments, entrepreneurship, and asset protection. Let's think about wealth. When you think about wealth, what does that bring to mind? How can you accumulate wealth? That's really a buzzword. Everybody talks about having multiple streams of income. What does that really mean to you? Think about that. In the world of capitalism, W.E.B. Du Bois said, capitalism is like having 3 ears of corn. One you eat, one you sell, and one you plant for seed for the future. In America, minorities, especially Black Americans, have not practiced capitalism since its inception. We are the perfect consumer for our economy. We need to change that. And that's what these chains are all about today. My talk over the course of the next few minutes will be designed to give you the keys to breaking the generational wealth curse that's been placed on the Black community. There are 5 pillars of wealth. Savings and credit is one. Real property assets or real estate is another. Investments, which could be your 401k, your IRA, any number of stocks and bonds, mutual funds, things of that nature. Entrepreneurship and asset protection. Those are the 5 pillars of wealth where it really makes sense to concentrate your efforts as you're looking at building your wealth journey. W.E.B. Du Bois, a famous Black scholar from the early 19th century, says capitalism is like having 3 ears of corn. One you eat, one you sell, and one you plant the seeds for next year's harvest. In America, the way we've been designed, Blacks have not practiced capitalism, which is why we're on the bottom of the wealth spectrum. W.E.B. Du Bois goes on to say, to be a poor man is hard, but to be a poor race in a land of dollars is the very bottom of hardship. So why are we here today? In addition to discussing the power of generational wealth, my platform is financial literacy. And ultimately, what we want to do is break generational curses or chains to start doing business and have a paradigm shift into the way that we have done things, making it better for our future generations. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story along my wealth journey. Hopefully it's something that you can relate to and know what's possible for you and also for your family as well. Like I mentioned, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and like most of you, I come up in a family where sports, education, and church was a very strong prevalence in my background. Sports became my love and my opportunity to take my education and my life in a different trajectory. Ultimately, what really made the difference was my time working in the banking industry. I spent 15 years in banking, having opportunity to work with some of the largest financial institutions in the country, starting in telemarketing, working my way up through management. And really what I saw more than anything else was our folks were the ones coming into the bank not in position to buy a home, not in position to start a business, not in position to get that loan. And really they just needed guidance. So where is financial literacy taught? Is it taught? You know, another famous author and Black scholar, Dr. Claude Anderson, says there's two great maladies in the past millennium, the past 2,000 years. One is the world's lack, care, and respect and repair for all of Africa's resources, from its people to its natural resources. And number two, the lack of financial education in the Western world, in the world dominated by politics, economics, and resources. And that is truly the impetus of my book and the purpose of my talk today, which is the power of generational wealth. What we're going to do today is take off these chains and make new decisions. We're going to take off the chains and make a decision, not only for ourselves, but for our family. If you have children, in most cases, that's your why. That's my why, and that's why I'm here today. So the second greatest wealth product in the United States of America is land ownership. Land. The best resource in America is the land itself. Only second all time to slavery. Think about that for a minute. The reason I'm in real estate, the reason I love real estate, and the reason there's an opportunity and journey for yourself in the real estate business is because it's tangible property. It's assets. If you don't have an asset, you don't own and control where you live. You can be put out or forced out at any time by your landlord or by the owner of your property. If you control where you live, that starts the opportunity to create and generate wealth. First, from the equity in the property, and second, the asset itself can be used to fund other things. So it's the land resources. Let's talk about the history just a little bit, since we're in Black History Month, talking about the history of land in America. In 1862, which was the last greatest homestead in America, the Homestead Act of 1862. You know what that means? Let's talk about it. The United States of America gave up 160 acres, up to 160 acres, to any white family, to any settler, European settler, that came here and made improvements on the land, modest improvements over a 5-year period. So what does that mean? It allowed 400,000 to 600,000 European settlers to come to the United States, get free land, and what happened with that land? The good thing about time is we've got time to look back and see what's happened. On average, every 25 to 30 years, the value of that land has doubled. So what does that mean? Those generations of families that got property in the 1860s, that's still in their family in most cases today. Most of the real estate in the United States, about 87%, is locked and boxed. You can't get to it. Those are the universities. the city buildings, things of that nature. All the railroads. The railroads were given 6 acres on either side of the railroad for about a penny. For about a penny in the 1800s. Think about that. So because blacks were not allowed to vote, have citizenship, we weren't even citizens at the time. We're 3/5 of a human. Everybody knows that, right? So if you couldn't vote, couldn't buy property, couldn't have or own a business, how are you able to generate wealth? Well, on the eve of the Civil War, the United States, and right after the Civil War, Black Americans had worked themselves up to be about 0.5% of the wealth of the total nation. Now, we've had 2 world wars, we've had the Iraq War, and countless others. And today, about 175 years later, Black Americans still have about 0.5% of our nation's wealth. So that means we're allowed to go to college now. We've got degrees. We've got great jobs. We can buy homes. All of those things changed. However, we still only have 1/2 of 1% of our nation's wealth. Why is that? It's based on consumer spending. Most people are aware of the United States economy. About 70% of it is based on spending. How do we spend? Let's think about that for a minute. The money that we spend, that we generate from our jobs, from our employment, from our businesses, about 98% of that goes out of our community within 8 hours of that money being generated. 8 hours. Other communities, white communities, European communities, Eastern European communities, Chinese, the money stays and bounces within that community 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 times before it leaves that community. So as you can see, there's a huge imbalance to how we're spending. Spending, as it relates to credit, as it relates to wealth, makes all the difference. So we're going to talk about habits just a little bit today. What are you spending your money on? We all spend our money, at least according to the 1.3 trillion that we generate annually. A lot of that is spent on beauty and healthcare. Women getting their hair done. Brothers getting a haircut. We like to look good, right? How many of those businesses do we own? And I mean the supply chain, the vertical supply chain, from the creation and manufacturing to the trucking and distribution to the retail stores. How many of those companies do we own personally? Not very many. We are huge in the frozen foods business. Black Americans spend a huge amount of money, and we probably support about 17% of that industry, according to last statistics. How much of that do we own? Think about the industries and the systems in our country. Education system, the legal system, the medical system. Think about those systems for a minute. How many of those systems do we actually own? How many do we control? Dr. Claude Anderson says, what you own and control in America determines your outlook. What resources you personally own and control determines your outlook in America. It determines what you're able to do. And so as it relates to wealth and wealth building, let's really take a step back for a minute and look at what we spend our money on. If we don't change how we spend our money, we are not able to generate, create, and ultimately leave wealth to our future generations. So let's talk about a minute about the decisions that we make. You know, we all have heard some of the buzzwords and some of the famous sayings about creating wealth, generating wealth. Well, let's look at why we don't do those things. I think if we go back to Deepak Chopra's statement, it's about our conscious mind. Our conscious mind is comfortable with our norms. We're extremely comfortable with the way we do things. We're comfortable with our lifestyle, the money we make. We like the big cars, big homes, suburban living, things of that nature. But that paradigm shift hasn't happened to where we're creating some tangible substance behind that. Like I said, we all are getting degrees. We all are getting jobs. especially black women. Shout out to our queens for doing their thing. But let's look at the information. Let's look at what we're doing and our habits. Going back to a famous author, Robert Kiyosaki, in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he talks about the return on information. He says it's only possible with knowledge. Without knowledge, information is meaningless. Information without financial education cannot then be processed into wealth. Let me say that again. Information or return on information is only possible with knowledge. Without knowledge, that information is meaningless. The information without financial education can then not be processed into wealth. So what does that mean? It means you can be as smart as a whip. It won't matter if you can't apply it. The application is what we're looking for here on a large scale in our communities. Let's face it, all investments are risky. It's as risky as the information you have. If you don't know how to invest in real estate, or you don't know anything about stocks or cryptocurrency or Bitcoin or any foreign exchange, it's all risky to you. The more information you have, the more comfortable you get with it. So let's make a conscious decision today to unleash our meta-human, our infinite potential. Let's unleash our best selves, not for us, but for our future generations. Let's as we wrap it up here today, and this talk, I'd like for you to kind of consider some takeaways. What can we take away from this virtual opportunity to make a change for something different? I've got some practical ways we can do that. Really, financial literacy, financial education starts at home, okay? It starts at home. So what does that mean to the average family? If you have kids, are you discussing your monthly budget with your kids at the kitchen table? If you're not doing that, why? Let's think about why we don't do that. Other cultures are doing that. Let's talk about starting businesses at the kitchen table. Let's have conversations about credit. Whether your credit's good or bad doesn't matter. It's the conversation with the children. Think about it for a second. If you're over 30, how did you learn about credit and financial literacy? More times than not, it's probably because you messed up with a credit card, or you took out a loan that you defaulted on when you were in college and didn't have very much money, or when you were starting your first job and your income was inconsistent, right? But we learn through the experience because we didn't have the foundational information given to us at home, okay? So let's start by having some tangible conversations with our children at the kitchen table. Are you insured? Do you have insurance outside of your primary employer? We all know that we don't stay at jobs 20 and 30 years like our parents did before us, right? So what happens with that group term insurance when you leave that job? You're no longer insured. And so it's important to have a policy, at least a small policy outside of your employment to protect your family. Now there's a separate conversation we can have about asset protection and insurance. It's also a wealth building product, okay? We won't get into that much today, but the point is having conversation at home, at the kitchen table with your children, okay? Let's talk about creating businesses with our children. One of the fun activities you can do with your child is let's look at the things that they're passionate about, whether it's video games or dancing or sports or what have you. How can we turn that passion into a money-making entity? There are people doing it right now. You know, I have a son that's 7 years old. He loves that kid Ryan on YouTube. He spends hours watching Ryan on YouTube. Why is it not possible for him to make those same videos? Ryan's making money, okay? His family is creating wealth for him as a child. Why are we not doing those same things? Buy land. If you do not own a home, okay, the first step in getting your wealth journey started is home ownership. Let's buy some land. If you're not in a credit position, you can text me 216-832-3675. Text wealth WELTH, text wealth to 216-832-3675. At the end of this presentation, I do have a free gift that I'm going to offer to everybody that came by and stopped at my virtual front row here today. But I want you to understand that there is practical ways and small steps that we all can take to improve our financial futures. Okay? And lastly, is making sure that you have the proper protection. Once you start to accumulate money in your 401k, your IRA, once you have a home, maybe you have an investment property, maybe you've started a side business outside of your job, let's take the proper steps to ensure those things so that when you pass, you're not leaving just the debts and the grand idea to your children, okay? As I wrap up here today, I want you guys to understand that you can find me and all of my products and all of our services that we offer at TonyRobinson.com. That's TONE Robinson.com. What we're doing is we're offering a free gift here today. It's a wealth building toolkit to go along with our conversation and our talk here today. And it's offered free of charge because we want to put something in your hand that has value. And we've got some other services to go along with that, but that's the free gift today. You can text me at 216-832-3675 to get that free gift, or you can see me on the front row and on the website at TonyRobinson.com. I look forward to working with you, and I look forward to seeing you on your wealth journey. Take care.